Evening, Minnesota Libertarians. Hey, welcome back. Rebecca and I have we're coming back, episode 2.1, and we're really excited to get going and talk about what the heck is going on in Minnesota legislature, what is going on with President Trump, and totally unredeeming himself as one of the most libertarian presidents so far, and pulling something the last couple days that. Well, we're looking forward to talk about. Rebecca and I are going to blind react to a video of him and BB on stage that I've seen a couple clips, and I really like to see everything that he's got to say. And a few more things, maybe Mankato and their Minority Report cameras all over town. So welcome, and let's get to it. Rebecca, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. We did take a bit of a break, and after I guess leading up to the last election cycle, we had to take a pause to do petitioning so that we could get all our people on the ballot. Well, and actually, TJ and me both included, we had to do petitioning for our campaigns to get on the ballot, and we were successful. But in the process of doing that, we, had to put the podcast down for a little bit. So, anyways, it's good to be back.
Once you get off track. Once you get off track off something, and you start getting into other routines, it's really hard to get back into something that, hey man, I really love doing this. And so I'm happy we're back. And so let's hope that we can stick to it. And I think we've got plenty of news to talk about every week, and I'm actually thinking about, we'll talk with comms and everything with the party and how we're going to stream some things, but I'd like to do some offshoot videos of my own too. Right. And some of the things that I'm up to in North St. Paul in my district and stuff like that. But
and Minnesota is giving us a lot of opportunity for some.
Great segue, right? So I ran for Minnesota House District 44B 2022 and 2024. In 2022, the district lines were redrawn. I know I talked about this in an earlier episode a long time ago, probably, but when those lines were redrawn, the incumbent, Leon Lilly, actually did not live in 44B, but he ran in 44B. He had an address for an apartment building in downtown North St. Paul, and that was his official address in the Secretary of State website. Now in 2022, what happened? We had the DFL trifecta, and the Republicans really had no leg to stand on, even if they were going to say, hey, Leon, here's my opinion. They probably knew the whole time. They just didn't care because they weren't going to get power anyways. And when the time comes when they can cheat like that, well, they're gonna. But now what happened? 40B in 24 now. 40B guy runs and doesn't live in the district. But hey, with a dead heat tie, Republicans say, oh, nope, you cheated. And now they've got a special election.
And they haven't even called the special election for 40B.
Right. First, Walz tried to pull off a special writ December something and say, hey, we're going to have a special election on this day. And it was like, wait, that can't happen. I don't actually know.
I think it was 4 days later. And by law, you had to have a minimum of 5 days to be able to have it announced so that people could get their affidavits in to be able to get on the ballot, which just as a side note, wouldn't have helped us as a party at all, because they still would have required us to do the petitioning and everything to get on the ballot, and finding a candidate, doing the petitioning, because we have to, minor parties go through an endorsement process. You can't just sign up and then enter your name for the primary. So the party would have had to found a candidate, endorsed them, then petitioned, and then made it to the Capitol to turn in the petitions and sign the affidavits. The law says that we are supposed to be given 5 days, which during petitioning season they give us 14 days. They're so nice. But during this one, minimum of 5 days, they only gave us 4, which was illegal. Not that 5 would have been neither were good for us, but they didn't even do it in a legal manner. And so there was a lawsuit. Supreme Court was like, oh, you're not allowed to do this, threw it out. So they haven't even, last I looked, they haven't even issued that special election. So that seat's just still sitting empty. And as a result, because that seat is still empty, the Democrats lost their majority in the House and are throwing such a temper tantrum and a fit that they haven't even shown up for what has it been, 3 weeks now?
Yeah, no, it's really annoying.
They haven't shown up at all in the House for 3 weeks. That means nothing happens.
And
nothing.
Well, and they've got their useful idiots spinning their spin and saying quorum, right? Steve Simon gets in front and says, nope, no quorum, nobody's sworn in even, nothing is going on because there's no quorum. There's no quorum because not one Democrat will show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just literally delaying and not showing up for work because, and the thing, the lefties and everybody on their side is like, well, it's because the Republicans refused to sign a power sharing agreement. It's like,
yeah, but
why? They have
the majority.
They don't have to share the power. The Democrats would never 1 minute, second, even fathom.
Well, and they didn't last legislative session when they had the majority. They didn't offer to.
What about it just happened in the Senate. The Senate, right when that senator passed away, and there was a power sharing agreement. But as soon as they got that one seat back, I think that's what I just heard the other day, that power sharing agreement is out the window. Now, power sharing agreement, it blows my mind to think of, well, this is the way it is, right? We only have two parties. It's like, but I'll only think you have two parties. And yes, in the game right now, there are only two parties. So I get that there's that, but what I just don't understand is the ability to play this game and steadfast like that, just not show up to work. Like you were elected.
Well, the hypocrisy is just unbelievable, and they don't even see it. They think, and I asked a friend I had a friend that's former Democrat. She since come over to the dark side and has become a libertarian because, shocker, some people just get tired of the hypocrisy. But I was like, so what are the Democrats saying? Because another friend was like, oh no, this is it. The Democrats will never recover from this. And I was like, don't underestimate the Democrat voters.
That's
I'm not sure they're as outraged about this as you are. And no, they're not. They're cheering this on. They're cheering this on. They think it's wonderful.
And saying it's the Republicans that won't agree to the power sharing agreement. It's like, but it's the Democrats that won't show up to work to create the power sharing agreement in the first place. That's the other thing. They want to meet outside of the House floor where they're supposed to be debating. They're supposed to be debating in these committees. They're supposed to be doing all this, and they're not. And so here's the other thing is that, I've heard other libertarians say, well, great, they're not doing anything. And yes, I agree. That is great when they don't do anything. But what it's going to do is just extend the doing anything into the summer and into however, right? And then they're going to, whatever their payroll and whatever their freaking, I don't know, per diems and crap that they're going to take. And
it's $86 a day is how much their per diem is. $86 a day.
And they get paid that no matter what, every day they're in session. Like just,
I don't know if
you got to show up to work to get per diem. That's my job.
Yeah, but I mean, they get to write the laws and make the rules.
Yeah.
And so who's going to hold them accountable? I mean, the courts, they're not going to. The people?
Ultimately, the people, right? Exactly. And they've got them so brainwashed. It's and I hate using that word, man. I hate using that word, but I like useful idiots better nowadays. You know what I mean? Where these folks just repeat the talking points and the dumb spin and don't take 1 second, 1 minute to counter argument or do any reflection or do any of these things to think, well, wait, what exactly are you elected to do? Go in and represent your district and govern, do the stuff. Like, don't sit there and be a baby. And I don't know if you want to watch this, but I got this video queued up of that big trans guy that came busting into the committee and called Walter Hudson a chicken.
Well, we should watch it. Let's totally watch
it. Okay. I'm gonna share it right now. Here's the first time I'm gonna try this. So let's.
Introducing the Onion, the non-lethal self-defense platform. Lightweight and simple to use. It uses
Look what water weight does to your body. Number one, stop drinking.
Speed it up after the ads.
When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Quorum! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Quorum! When do we want it? Now!
Yeah. He's out of breath.
Right? We will not comply! We will not comply! We will not comply! You are not allowed to do this! Whose house is this? You chicken meatball-headed motherfucker! Whose house is this?
So yeah, yeah. Sorry, I don't know. We're live, but that was really interesting. To
you know that all he needs is the Democrats to show up, and they'll have quorum. I mean,
yeah, and they can do their house, their whatever, their thing. One other thing, when this happened that day, that was a while ago. That was when the Republicans, hey, we're going to show up to work and have our committees, and they stormed in on a committee on a legal something that was taking place when they're, remember January 6th? Remember this? Yeah. That was the whole thing. We were interrupting a legal due process. Like, people actually give a shit about these legal processes only when it's against their side. Honestly, nobody cares about when that stuff happens except for the folks in that ivory tower that go through that pump and whatever you call it. I guess that's not even the right thing, is it? Because that's more like anyways, all the dumb procedural crap that must take place. But either way, how can anybody be proud of that? That just standing up with a megaphone and yelling and being, it reminds me a lot of, remember John Thompson, the guy that ran in St. Paul, the friend of Philandro Castillo, and he ran and got elected in the House district or Minnesota House, and he did the whole protest at Bob Kroll's yard in Hugo. Like, I don't know. I'm as an anarchist, that's not freaking anarchy. That's chaos and that's dumb. You know what I mean? That's some people would call anarchy, but that is not anarchy. That's evil bull crap, invading someone's personal property and doing those things and then showing up like this with this blowhorn. I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, because the way that the legislative branch works in the state, or well, in the federal level too, is that if Minnesota wants to have any bills or anything passed this session, then it's got to go through the House and the Senate, right? So with the House being totally shut down, that means even the Senate is crippled, because there's no way that they can get a companion bill in through their own committees and then to be able to, because you got to pass them in both the House and Senate for it to become law. That could be good in some circumstances. I'm thinking like the year when they passed all that, the gun control reform, the red flag laws, the safe storage laws, all that kind of stuff. Like, we could have skipped that session and been better off for it, right? But this legislative session, there has been a real push for Defend the Guard legislation. And now, because of this, even if it gets through the Senate, because there is no House and no quorum in House, and they can't do any business whatsoever, it'll never get through, right? So that's one problem. The second problem is, and we already know this, but the people that are in charge of getting it through the House, who supposedly are occasionally allies sometimes, are the ones that are literally holding up any sort of legislative change with something like Defend the Guard, the Defend the Guard bill. They've already committed to not allowing it to go through the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, and not giving it any time for a hearing whatsoever through the House. And that's through the House. In the Senate, they not only have the bill and they have it, a number for it, and they have co-authors for it, but they have bipartisan support for this bill in the Senate. So the House is a mess. The Senate's, it's Minnesota, so my expectations, my standards are kind of low, and my expectations are not high. But this is a bill, especially now, where we really need a lot of attention on it and a lot of support during a time where it has, at least in the Senate, has bipartisan support.
Huge.
We have Democrat and Republican co-authors on this bill.
I think Defend the Guard is a domino tipper. You know what I mean? Once someone gets it passed, everyone's going to see, okay, similar to what I believe is once we get a libertarian elected, it's going to be tipping dominoes and like, oh, well, now, because everybody says, oh, you just can't get elected as a libertarian. And obviously they're not wrong, but
but it's only because there's an L besides the name and not an R or a D. That's literally the only reason. So that doesn't even make any logical sense whatsoever. It's probably the biggest lie that Americans have allowed to continually be perpetuated through, generations. Like, oh, well, it's just, there's just a two-party system. That's the way it's always got to be. That's a lie. It's only that way because you're allowing it.
Yep. No, and that's where Matt Kowalski shared a great, duopoly post, and one of my Navy friends commented, and just damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I'm like, well, there is a way. We all have that option, at some point. Now, this is the other part, it's a bit of a tangent on this third party voting and whatever, but the way I always think of it too is that, well, when have they had the option in these local races? Not very much, right? Because our party is not very big, and then folks that are even going to run are even, very small percentage.
Well, and then, we could have more candidates, but they put a lot of hurdles in the way for getting people on the ballot.
True.
And
yes.
That's just a simple fact. Like if it last election season, I think we turned away probably 5 or 6 legitimate candidates simply because we had to prioritize resources, and we had to decide which races we were going to spend our time and our energy to petition to get on the ballot. Now, by state law, we have to have a statewide candidate get at least 1% of the vote in a race every 4 years. And this last election season was our 4th year out of 4 years. So we had to get a candidate, not only just a candidate on the ballot, but get that 1%. And so that's why we ended up turning away other people, because that statewide race was so vital, literally for the survival of the party. But that's arbitrary because it's only that way because state law says it has to be. They take away that state law, and then we can run more winnable races, or races that have more strategic value than a statewide race could.
I guess I should brush up more on those stupid election laws, but because you know what, that could be more of a opportunity that we should focus on picking at whatever committee members, if they ever get to work, to get some of those laws changed. But
look, some of those people are in seats where their seat is not secure. If I were them, I'd be worried. This means that, especially when you have seats that are real close to the metro, but just not close enough where they're actually in the city. They're kind of on the fringe of the city. So you still have because as soon as you leave the cities, it's rural pretty quickly.
That's my district, Rebecca. That's literally on the east side of Oakdale is Lake Elmo, and they're as rural as it gets in the metro, I believe. And
so this is where we could have an influence, is in those races where we're like, hey, that Democrat and that Republican that ran that race in that seat, whoever it was, they only won by 1% or less. Some of those are very close races, right? And they switch back and forth. That's why sometimes the House has Democrat majority and sometimes it has Republican majority. And then we purposefully interject a libertarian into that race to screw it all up.
Sure.
That's the power that our party has.
Yep. Well, those are the districts. We really got to get down to the analytics and look into which districts are teeter-tottering and then recruit or find someone in those districts, because I mean, my district is on the outskirts of the cities, but Lily's really dominated for 20 years.
I have a comment in the laws for ballot access are there to protect the duopoly candidates. They're heavily incentivized to keep these laws on the books. Not sure how to convince them to change it.
Yeah, no, and that's like any, any big corporation pushing for regulations, but they know that those regulations are actually going to push out the little guy, and they can absorb these regulations. You know what I mean? That's exactly what that is, the Americans with Disabilities Act or things like this, and OSHA and all this crap that these big companies can push for, all these regulations and things, because the little guys can't handle it.
Yeah. So circling back to the Defend the Guard legislation, because we do have a rally that's coming up in April. So April 5th in St. Paul at the Rotunda. And I think it starts at 11. I'm not looking at my notes, but I'm pretty sure that's when it starts. And this will be the third year in a row we've done a Defend the Guard rally. And like, we're just going to keep doing this until they pass the bill. And then so I mentioned earlier, the Senate they have an author and co-authors, and they do have Republicans and Democrats that are on that bill. Now, the problem is, like I said before, is the House. And that's kind of what I want to talk about, because there is, we essentially have a call to action for this, that there are people that we need, and anybody listening, to be able to reach out to these people and talk to them in support, that you support the bill, you want to see this passed. And I'm not above bullying politicians. So I'm like, say whatever you want to say. Like, I'm, obviously don't threaten them, but,
leave that up to Nick.
Yeah. I'm not always necessarily nice. I don't know. It's just, anyways. But in the House, the chair of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee is Representative Matt Bliss. He's actually my representative up here in northern Minnesota. And so I, months ago, was able to get in touch with him and be like, hey, how about this bill? I've got this legislative wish list. I want to talk about this stuff. And he took my call, and we had a chance to, on the phone and have a conversation about what I wanted to see passed in Minnesota. But when we got to the Defend the Guard legislation, this is what happened. At first, I told him what it was. And if you haven't ever looked it up for like the people that are watching, the Defend the Guard legislation, all it is, it's a very short bill. It is simply states that for the Minnesota National Guard to be able to be used in a combat area or in like times of war or military actions that result in combat, that there has to be a congressional approval of war for the Minnesota National Guard to be able to be involved and to go overseas.
Overseas, right?
Overseas, yeah. So it doesn't stop like state stuff, because that's the purpose of the National Guard, is to be on ground, boots on ground, essentially like a state militia, to be able to react quickly for their own community, their own state, natural disasters, civil unrest. There's all kinds of things that you would call the National Guard to react to. Mm-hmm. But that, wars in foreign countries to protect, the military industrial complex's interests are not one of them. Or to, spend 20 years fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that's not one of them either. That they shouldn't be used in that manner. That's actually abusing their willingness to participate in the military. And so when I talked to Matt Bliss about this the first time, he was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. That makes sense. That's a common sense bill." That is literally what he said. Yeah. And then he said, but let me make some phone calls first, and then I'll get back to you, and we'll talk about this. So he, it was a couple of weeks later, and I hadn't heard from him. And so I was texting him and I was like, hey, do you have any updates? And he was like, oh, that meeting I'm having is, just in like 3 days or something like that to talk to some people about this bill. And he's usually like on text messaging or any of that kind of stuff. He's a very responsive person. He's always gotten back to me immediately. And I can see when he's read the text messages, like there's no hiding it. You can see when they've seen the message.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave it a couple of days after his meeting and I texted him again. I was like, so what's the update? And he didn't respond. And I could see he saw it. And so I was like, well, I don't know. I got an uneasy feeling, and a few days later, text him again. Like, hey, sorry to bother you. I'm just looking for an update. Are you going to do this? And he straight up told me no. In fact, I could read the text message. I'll just do that. And so hold on, let me find it. I guess I should have been more prepared so that I could have this for the screen.
Yeah, and as Nick just commented, that he's been responsive, other than your back and forth with him.
Mm-hmm.
But literally talking to, did I just say that? I didn't mean to hit that, but there's the response. Michael Duvall talking. He's a former lobbyist. While you're looking at that, are looking for that.
Yeah.
But that's a great response from Michael Duvall saying, what did he say?
Politicians bully us in many indirect ways. They need to be reminded they are civil servants and they can't just blow you off, especially if you have an appointment to meet.
Yeah.
So anyways, his text message said he spoke with 2 recruiters and 3 National Guard members, which I have since learned were actually generals, with combat experience. I'm sorry, but there's no such thing as a general with combat experience. There's not. No. I found no support for this initiative. I don't think it is ready yet. And I was like, you found no support. You talked to 2 recruiters and 3 National Guardsmen. That doesn't count as not having any support. And if it's like,
it's like Jake said the other night, that asking the addicts if we should ban the drugs or.
Yeah. Like, and there's this thing, well, because you were in the military, I was in the military. When you're actively in the military and you have a job to do and your job description is literally like preparing for war.
Do what you're told. If it's a lawful order, that's about it.
Yeah. And especially when you're young, you're just like, yes, this is exciting. I can't wait to do this. It's only not until after the fact, when it's over, they were like, what was I was so
well,
wrong.
And not even that, I went on a customs deployment with the Navy Reserve, and there were folks that were on their 3rd rotation in this customs unit because, hey, it's a gravy 8 months to go out and do your thing, and you make enough money for a whole year. And unless you understand what's happening, what the whole revolving door of the dumb MIC and all this dumb crap, what it's really the goal is, then you start understanding and, dealing with the consequences, and then what we're doing is trying to stop it. Where, right. Again, these folks are, like you said, gung-ho. They weren't kids. I was on this customs deployment with adults that were much older than me. I was the kid. I was in my 20s, and it was unreal that there were these old folks that, wait, this is your job? You just go on a deployment for 8 months, and then you're off for 8 months, and then you come back for 8. Like, that's what they were doing as a Navy reservist. And it got me. I've thought about this. It's like, yeah, those kinds of folks might not be behind what we want to do because all they think about is their livelihood. Similar to all these folks freaking out about USAID. It's like, well, they're now all this program. That's how I get paid. Well, don't you realize that you're getting paid by dirty money and not real shit that it should be paid for? And I deal with the same thing. I work for the military industrial complex. And yes, if my job were to go away, I kind of would be happy about it. Like if that was the case, but that's not the case. And I'm still going to do my job. But I don't know. I just feel like it is so logical. Like you said, Bliss said it right off the bat. everyone, if you think about it, right, until he was influenced by someone else. And and that to me is a typical politician, right?
That's the thing. So when he's saying National Guard members, and I mentioned this a minute ago, National Guard members, and then find out later through somebody else's conversation that he actually means generals.
How about National Guard veterans? How about we talk to them?
And it's not even veterans. It's just the people that are, so like the generals, their positions are compromised. They have put themselves in a position where their entire career is based off of the existence of war. It is they need that that time in service and that time overseas it's basically, it helps like prop your career up. It helps you go up the next rank, you know. And for those that don't know, there's 4 levels of generals. So it's not, well, sometimes there's 5, but anyways,
be my little general.
Yeah. So just, a general is like a 1-star general, 2-star general, anyways. But their opinion is compromised. They're not the ones that are going to be risking their necks when they're sent overseas to a conflict. It's not the generals that are going to be doing that. It is the people like us that don't get to hide behind the stars on our collars. So the generals don't get an opinion. As far as I'm concerned, they can shove it. And anybody that's listening to the general and taking their advice off what is the personal good for the individual soldiers, the generals are the last ones to ask. I bet you none of the people he had conversations with were any NCOs or lower enlisted. Well, and even veterans, the people that have been through it have said, I did that. Anyways, I just, and if you're a veteran, there's definitely a break between enlisted and officers. And while we might respect the rank, I would rather have an enlisted behind me.
100%, yes.
Than an officer, because anyways, I'm going to put up on the ticker how to get in touch with Matt Bliss.
Sweet.
As soon as I get this figured out. Yeah.
Well, what do you say we move along then and talk about maybe a lot of the folks watching have understood what the hell he said, but I didn't see the whole video yet. When Trump I heard he wants to buy Gaza or at least control Gaza. Honestly, the Trump isn't a libertarian thing, no doubt, right? But he was doing a lot of libertarian things, and so far. But then this move was like Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. Totally unredeem yourself, like just a 180 on the whole thing, and everybody's like, huh?
Yeah, so, I'm not even sure I would consider and we've it's such a mess. I don't consider Trump a libertarian at all.
No.
He might occasionally get something right, but it's purely on accident.
Absolutely. And I agree. No, I think Trump listens to logic sometimes and says, wow, that makes sense. And guess what? Libertarians always have the most logical points, and there's a lot of shit on social media that I love to see, right? Elon Musk retweeting Murray Rothbard stuff and Ron Paul all the time. I mean, granted, okay, there's this oligarch that's in control of all this stuff. I don't know if he's really in control. Again, he's just being the logical ear to whatever and doing things that, transparency. To me, it's like, what is the difference between what has been going on already, other than the fact that we can see it's actually happening and we can see all where the money is going? They're being very transparent about it. Before, that money was always being wasted and all this stuff was fraudulently being spent, but it was all in darkness. So I guess this is the difference. Now there's this rich South African oligarch that is creating this transparency. I don't know. Maybe I'm ignorant to it too. I've got a lot of life to live and do other things to not necessarily know every damn thing that's going on. I don't think anybody does. But so here, do you want to watch this video with Trump and
Yeah, let's
Bibi?
watch this.
Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that. We're going to take over that piece, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs.
Did it sound like he almost said we're going to take over that piece of
and it'll be something that the entire Middle East can be very proud of.
How?
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there, redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens, just as the space is inherited by the Palestinians as well?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and
Okay. So
wait. He said thousands of jobs. There's 2.1 million people in Gaza.
yeah.
So we're going to bulldoze and turn this 2.1 million people. And that's not even, that doesn't even include the amount of people that have been killed in the last year and a half.
Again,
right?
and yeah, where are they going to put them all while they're bulldozing? Well, where are these folks?
No, they're not implying that the people from Gaza are going to be allowed to stay there. They're implying that those people are going to be removed and sent someplace else. That's what would happen. 2 million people. That's not a small thing. I would also like to make a historical note that Israel keeps making this, like, oh, they want the land's important, blah, blah, blah. Like it's the land of their ancestors. The Israelites, who were formerly they were the Jews, and then anyway. So like the Israelites, the Hebrews, they never owned Gaza. They never controlled what it was called back then. But Gaza has been a city for literally thousands of years. The Israelites, even during the time of King David, didn't control Gaza. That's not their land. Like, so they can't even. Right now, they're trying to take something that they don't even have ancestral claim to.
Not even part of that ancestral claim crap. Okay.
Right.
Well, honestly, to me, whenever it comes down to this shit that's going on over there, to me, it's like America first says, go away and let them do what they want to do and see how they handle it. Right. I'd love to. That's how I'd love to handle it.
Yeah, this whole thing just makes me mad because, if the United States, and this was during the Biden administration, so there's equal, blame across not just Republicans but the Democrats too. Like they have both played a part into where we are today. And if at any point in time they would have quit sending money to Israel, Israel would not have had the capacity to keep having an onslaught of the bombing and the destruction of which Gaza exists in now. So he's talking about, oh, like the whole thing is rubble. Yeah, because how many billions of dollars did we send them to ensure that that was the case? You know, so, and then now we're going to come up, the United States under the Trump administration. Oh, I've got a solution. We're going to create thousands of jobs. It's going to be wonderful, but we're going to level 2 million more people to be able to get this done, that are living in rubble because of the money to buy the bombs so that the Israelites could bomb them, like Israelis, or, you know, like
that's the one part of that clip that towards the end there, when Bibi actually got to talk, he says, well, yeah, we need to make sure that they have no more chances to attack Israel. And it's like, what? Do you not see?
Did they ever try to come, like, maybe just
It never was that.
Like, maybe just don't make them live under the boot of oppression. Like,
yes.
Maybe start there. And, you know, Israel's like, they're like, oh, Hamas, but Israel created Hamas. This is how Hamas was only ever a thing in Israel because Israel propped them up.
Yeah, the Likud party,
Palestinian Authority.
Absolutely. And there were clips. I don't know if it was a video clip, so even videos can be fake too, but of Netanyahu. And I know Dave Smith talks about it a lot as far as the Likud party totally backing Hamas so that there will never be a two-state solution. And that makes sense to me, that would be an incentive for them so that they don't let them have any power, even though it doesn't make any sense because that's not how civil people freaking operate.
Right. What they need is they need to just be left alone. And well, I mean, at this point in time, like I have trouble thinking about this because it's just so horrendous. I mean, like, I don't know. I just, you know, you see the pictures of like Gaza and he's right, the destruction of the buildings and the families and things, you know, it's awful. And now, I mean, if I was Palestinian and the Americans, you found out that the Americans are like, yeah, we're going to fix this by removing you. I don't, what else they have left? Like, they're just, what else is there?
Exactly. And then what?
There's nothing.
And then folks become terrorists, right? When you see someone push to that limit, I don't understand. I totally understand. And I get what happens when you get pushed to that limit. You know what I mean? This is where I was supposed to be at a court date this week for a friend of mine, the state taking his kids away. And that's the thing. It's like, that's the kind of stuff that make a man go crazy. And yes, you destroying my homeland and I'm walking down the street with my uncle. Next thing you know, boom. Oh, my uncle's blown up. Oh, look at those.
They have to go. Like, it to them, they have
the rest of my life.
When you have people whose backs are against the wall and they've got nothing left, that's what else do they have but to fight? Like, and you know, and here's the thing, just kind of to draw this all together. There's one reason why we need Defend the Guard legislation.
Yes.
Because the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, they were only allowed to be continued for as long as they did because we so heavily relied on the reserves and the National Guard because the active duty units by themselves were not enough people to do the mission of what was being asked of us. The mission was too big, too heavy, and too long. There was too much being expected for too small of a force. And so the only reason they were able to go for 20 years to be able to do this was because they had on demand continual access to National Guard and Reserve units who the president could just be like, oh, I have the authorized use of military force and we need the Minnesota National Guard over here in Gaza. And by the way, the Minnesota National Guard, if you didn't know, has already been to Gaza. They've already been there.
You mean all the cooks and dishwashers?
Last year, right?
Well, I know.
They're already sending them. If you want to do something to make this stop, then it's essentially like a hydra. But we've got to start cutting the heads off the snakes at some point. And this is one way to do this. Then the only person standing in the way, Representative Matt Bliss, please call, send an emails, do it every day. Just be the squeaky wheel. And then you could tell him that because I'm in his district, if he doesn't stop, I may just have to run against him. Like we're just going to have to get rid of him.
As a Republican, even to primary him out.
I'm not running as a Republican. I would not go that far.
Okay.
But
I've toyed with this idea. I've toyed with this idea just to let you know, but I think I'd rather go the independent route rather than the Republican route. First, because I think you're right with the L, whatever, but I'm proud to be a libertarian. There's no doubt about that. There's
some things I can't stomach, and becoming a Republican, I think, would be one of them.
I'm right there. I'm with you. Well, on a bit of a segue with this stopping that madness in the overseas and toppling regimes overseas and stuff like that, that's a lot of what this USAID money goes to, right? They're talking about gay discos in Malaysia or whatever. I don't know. I'm somewhat making it up, but I know that shit is in those allotments. And what it is literally to overthrow and cause a chaos in these areas so that the CIA and our dark secrets overseas can take care of their own business.
I saw a picture this afternoon, and maybe I can text it to you. I don't know if you'd be able to. Maybe we'll just share it next time. But I saw a picture this afternoon. Yeah, here it is. It's Taliban with like weapons and stuff on their shoulders, and they got the whole thing. But how do you say it? Is it USAID or like sometimes
right? It's one of those acronyms that makes it sound like it's aid when it's
it's true.
American Infrastructure and Development or something like that.
But they're standing in a building that has USAID written all over it. Like, I mean, maybe this is a novel idea, but maybe we stop funding the terrorists.
Yes.
Maybe.
Crazy. Right?
I don't know.
That was, and you know what? When I first started listening to Dave Smith, and he used to have his intro, and if you want to know who America's next enemy is, look at who we're funding right now. And right away, it took me a while to actually understand what he meant by that, and look at exactly what timeline's going on with Ukraine or Syria and things like this, and Al Qaeda. I think that was the whole thing, is the Al Qaeda thing where and Mujahideen and all these terrorist groups that we use to fight, and then they turn and they're like, but look at what you're doing, and you gave us all these weapons and money. And Rocket, is it Rocket Man? Why am I
I don't know where you're going with this.
Freaking Marvel, right? Tony Stark, where he gets
Iron Man.
I totally blanked on that. I was like, it's not Rocket Man. But anyways, where, he's captured by these terrorists and, there's one of his damn missiles that blows him up.
Yeah, because he was doing an arms deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are things, when that movie first came out, I did not see that, and I did not recognize it like that. But now it's just right there, and it totally makes sense to me, and it's yeah.
Yep. It's the pressure. It's just too much pressure with this
Iron Man. Totally. I was thinking of what Trump used to call Kim Jong-un, Rocket Boy.
Okay.
Hey, I did just pull up this Mankato story if we want to close out the hour here and talk a little bit about Mankato's AI. Police there are preparing to use high-definition camera systems, license plate tracking, software powered by AI, and a nationwide law enforcement surveillance network. Using high-definition camera system, they just said it. Mankato's Department of Public Safety is preparing to amplify its ability to monitor people and vehicles moving through the city. Oh, boy. Now, again, this is a lot of talk here, but I guess I'm not so afraid of the AI. I'm more afraid of the dang bureaucrats that can then understand the power that they can wield in their hands, kind of thing. And then the vendettas that they can throw at the folks that they don't like personally, and then how that spreads into this chaos dumb shit.
Yeah, artificial intelligence has absolutely no place in law enforcement. Like, we already have injustice issues. This can be manipulated. We have active cases of, and I can't even talk about this here, but like deep conspiracy of high-ranking people in Minnesota. Like, there's proof of that. And so, you're getting people who are actively conspiring against normal, everyday citizens to prop themselves up in their political positions, giving them access to creating for artificial intelligence. Like, they're already planting and putting people in prison unjustly. Now you're giving them the tools to like manipulate the videos, or like I don't know what could possibly go wrong by giving people that we already know have a deep history of acting unjustly and in bad faith and walking over normal Minnesotans for their own ends, and then giving them the tools to be able to do that easier on a greater scale.
Well, I mean, lawyers like Tom Gallagher or whatever, hopefully could be pretty busy going. Weren't the stoplight cameras and the speeding cameras and stuff all outlawed in Minnesota, saying they're unconstitutional?
We have them here in Bemidji.
Do you?
I mean, you can see them on when you drive underneath.
No, but like they do a flash every time it turns red, and anybody in the middle of that intersection gets a ticket. Like, I got one in Florida once a few years ago, got the ticket a few months later, called a couple lawyers, and they didn't really much help. And then I eventually was like, I ain't paying that shit. That's bullshit. The car in front of me stopped and whatever. And there's a chance I got a warrant in Florida, I guess, but there's also a chance that the lawyers at the collections agency, they called me, said, are you fighting it or are you paying? I said, I'm fighting it. And they just hung up because I think they got no chance. They can't fight me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They just wait for me to pay it, and folks just pay it and then they move on.
Well, if the police ever show up from you said that was in Florida? That was
Florida, Tampa, Florida. But
well, you're safe. Nobody from the South comes to Minnesota anyways. So
yeah. Well, there was a few years after it. I was at a convertible with my boys. We were on vacation. I was like, hey, you want to do 100? And started doing 100. And as soon as I realized, I might have a warrant in the state. So I backed off a little bit.
Thing is, we probably shouldn't say on a public.
Whatever. It's fun.
This is being recorded. So we have. I don't remember. Maybe we should get Brian on here. He's part of the LPMN. But he had looked into
New Prague. He's really paying a lot of attention. Yeah.
They had put these cameras in New Prague that were automatically geared for, like, if they saw anything funny, and I don't know, however they were programmed, and you didn't know where they were. They're not necessarily on a street. And he told me that they have a list or whatever. I don't know how I got this information. But that his list showed that they have them in Bemidji too. And so you could be walking through a park or something and you don't even know it, but there's a camera recording you. Like, where do you know? Because you don't know where those are.
And, many, many years, for a long time, my attitude was what a lot of Americans are. Well, if you ain't doing nothing wrong, who gives a shit? That, to an extent, okay, but wait until then you get pile and pile and pile. All of a sudden, there is no force to counteract that force of Big Brother.
Right.
I totally understand that now. And I think keep it simple and stop hearing that Apple commercial with the flying cameras and stuff blown up everywhere. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but I think that's fake too. I think that's bullshit that they're trying to tell you that they're secure. I don't think anybody is secure. I think they're all able to watch us, like Snowden told us, but whatever, they can tell the normies that everything's being safe so that they won't believe anything we say. Boy, our chat really is going off. Looks like Joey, Charles, and Mike are talking a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I am not a fan of the AI. It just, you take out the human. We should be allowed for the human error, especially in law enforcement.
Sure, no doubt. Anything that absolutely, I agree. Law enforcement does freak me out too much to see that kind of infrastructure, whatever. But I did see Nick talk about AI does have its uses in medicine and things like that. I think that's totally that. I think that really makes sense when you think of the things that humans don't even know about our body and in medical industry, that maybe there's a lot of things that need to be figured out that could be calculated or figured out more quickly with the AI. I don't know. Well, hey, I really want to thank everybody for watching along. I think we had a pretty good turnout tonight for our first night back. And
yeah, we had quite a few people watching. I did want to bring up that just as a reminder, not to leave on a black pill, but there is $36.45 trillion of debt in the United States. So if you are not doing something to prepare for, I don't know, whether it's buying silver or having your own garden or doing something that makes you a little more independent, now is the time. Now is the time. So grow some tomatoes, go support your local farmers. $36 trillion of debt. And there's a debt clock. You can just Google it, which I just learned actually that it's got an app now. You can track the debt clock on an app. So I clicked on that and I was like, oh, that sounds more convenient. Only the app costs $5. I'm not paying $5 to track the debt clock. But if everybody paid $5 to track the debt clock, we would only need 7 trillion sales to come up with enough money to pay off the national debt.
So with 8 billion, and I think that's liberal, 8 billion people in the world, to make 7 trillion, I think we'd all have to work probably for 500 years or so.
Wait a second. Let me see what 7 trillion divided by 8 billion. Hold on. This is a lot of.
That's more than that, actually. Probably.
Yeah. So you would have. Everybody on the planet would have to buy the debt clock app 912 times.
Yeah. Maths, man. And that's the thing that folks just don't understand when they see that number. Whatever, and inflation, whatever, adjusted for inflation. And, that's what makes the world go round. It's like, gosh, our education system has failed. Hey, that's next week. Let's talk about that. Let's see what happens in the degradation of the Department of Ed.
Oh, wait, where are you seeing I guess I scroll up. Department of Ed.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, pointing at you. Oh. Let's talk about that next week. Let's talk about Department of Education and what's progressed in Tulsi, RFK, and Cash's confirmation hearings and stuff that went down. We didn't mention anything about that, but
yeah, we should do that.
That comment too.
Prepping. There's a reason I live up by the Canadian border, and
I think my backyard in North St. Paul is going to go through a bit of a transformation this summer. I really want it to happen. I really want to make it happen. Last year, I got my wife started. We grew a whole ton of squash and zucchini and pumpkins, nice. And so she's into it. And it's like, oh yeah, now we're on.
Now you got to get chickens.
That's next. I do have a little clubhouse in the backyard that I want to turn into a chicken coop.
Nice. All right. Well. Don't forget, so I guess the announcements would be Defend the Guard rally is April 5th in St. Paul at the Rotunda. Starting at 11 o'clock is when the rally is going to start, but we'll start setting up about 10 o'clock. So if people want to come early, that event is free. So, you just kind of wander in and say hi. And then the other thing we have coming up is the state convention. That is March 8th and 9th. And that's in St. Cloud at the Marriott Hotel. I don't have that in front of me, but I think it's a Marriott. Anyways, you can go to the website, look it up. The information's there, lpmn.org. Tickets are for sale. If you are not already a member, you wouldn't be able to go and cast a vote, but you could go and meet the rest of us, because anyways. So, but if you would like to become a member for the party, also that information is at lpmn.org. Or if you're just like, hey, I want to donate, help you guys out, that's also lpmn.org. And then our ticker is still going at the bottom. Please, everybody, go give Matt Bliss, let him know, support the Defend the Guard legislation, and let him know I'm watching him.
Yes. Yeah, we'll mobilize.
I says hi. So, well, yeah, and next week will be same time, 5, not 5. I don't know why I said 5. 7.
Well, it's 5 o'clock here. I'm in California, so that's what time I had to rush and get out of work and get here and done. But
yeah, and hopefully TJ will still be in the States next week. So
I will be. I'll be right here. I'll be in the same room. Nope, I'll be in Sacramento, but I'll be not leaving
still
yet.
in California, still in the States. So
all right.
Well,
bye everyone.